Morning. Today I want to talk about meditation and I want to tie it in with connection. How it's helped me connect in my life. So, again, I have kind of the tale of two stories, two different ways of connecting or disconnecting throughout my life to draw experience from. The first, through all my adult life up to 40 years old, believing I had connections in ways that were like plausible truths. So there was connections, but the story of I guess the story of two wolves was happening. Um, there was the story of there's a battle of good and evil going on, or the two wolves. One is evil, anger, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self pity, guilt, lies, false pride. Superiority of the ego. On the other side, and looking back, those are kind of, they feel like truths, but they're not. And on the other side, the prevailing truths, the true truths, they're good, joy, peace, things like hope, serenity, kindness, empathy, generosity, compassion, like faith that things are going to work out for the best. Uh, I was trying to live that way, well, being on substances every day from 13, 14, 15 years old, every day. Those substances changed over time. They became in combination with each other. Some fell off, others took their place. Typically, drugs that were more harmful, substances that were more harmful. Um, and in doing that, I felt that I was connecting to the good by changing and suppressing and repressing through substance abuse, which I didn't know I was doing all those years. It felt like I was connecting to the good, the kindness, the love. You know, I felt I didn't feel the anger, the jealousy, the sorrow, the insecurities, the self-pity, the guilt and the resentments. And if I fucked up, I didn't feel it for long because I had a substance, a daily substance, all the while keeping a job, raising a family, meeting the woman of my dreams, somehow trying to balance this life. I really felt connected, but at times, when things really would get bad, which they would periodically, trying to pretty much living the tale of two wolves, uh, on my day-to-day life, day by, days added to weeks, weeks to months, months to years. Eventually took more and more substances to keep feeling the good, and the truth was starting to show itself. However, there comes a period of time for me where I just was so far gone that probably either I was too afraid, and this could be happening or was happening at least for most of the time, maybe the last few years, in a way that I wasn't even conscious of it. Um, I kind of lost the ability to change my path. Even if I had fleeting thoughts of like, oh, this is going too far, like, I gotta stop using some of these substances. How would I do that? Well, I would tell myself another plausible truth that I could slow down or cut it out or uh, wean myself off. Um, and I'd start spending less money, and that I wouldn't start. I would start feeling I'd be able to use these substances in a way that made me feel good all the time again. That started happening. The ability to do that started happening less and less and less, and the dishonesty of the way I was living started to gain more momentum and more momentum and more momentum, started to build up and started to cause more and more problems in the relationships in my life, and kind of the kids started to get older, and probably a big part of the tale of two wolves that was going on inside of me, because the whole while there is always, has always been, the loving side, the caring side, the kindness side, uh, the faith that it's all going to work out, being generous, giving something back to other human beings, other people, which when doing that without consciously really knowing it for a long time, um, by doing those things like coaching kids, my kids, but other kids. Sometimes I coach teams that my kids weren't even on. Uh, by making connection with those kids and helping those kids have fun and live in their peace and in their love of life and their passions. I was still had connections, true connections. By the end, all I had was my job, and my substances. Very little connection left, and it started to become more and more obvious, and it was so much harder to drown out or numb out. Again, this was happening on a more unconscious level than it's almost unbelievable looking back how blind, how thick the disguise and the denial of addiction that I was in, because I didn't even believe I was an addict. Not until the very last months, maybe a couple years at most. I didn't think life without drugs was ever even a thought. I thought it was my solution. So in the end, the question of the story of the two wolves that is asked by the grandson is, which wolf wins? Well, so obviously, the one you feed the most. So in the end, I was feeding disconnection. I was feeding false identity. I was feeding myself false pride and trying to live off pure ego and self-will. That is not faith. That is not love. That is not trust. That is not companionship. And it took a bottom. It took me to lose all of my relationships for me to even look at, maybe I need to stop feeding the black wolf, the darkness inside, the fear. So in totally losing the battle with trying to control how I was going to feel, which was going to be good, better, or even better by substance use, eventually came to an end. I could no longer, those substances didn't make me feel good anymore. I was alone, jobless, familyless, relationshipless, lost. Call it the gift of desperation, God. I didn't like that word at the beginning. I didn't think God could save me. I didn't mean. I actually probably thought, on some level, that if there was a God, I wouldn't be in this position. How would God let this happen, right? So really, all it came down to was I wasn't willing. I didn't know how to take responsibility. I didn't know any other way. Somehow, I learned somewhere along the way that I don't have to feel or talk about when I'm angry, or show when I'm sad, or show or talk about if I feel guilty or have remorse or grief about something, or how to come clean if I tell a lie. Like, how would anybody accept me if I admitted that I was lying about whatever it was I was lying about? I couldn't see that there's freedom in being able to do that. And people, by nature of their ego and self-will, and that sometimes they do things they don't want to do. And the way to fix it is to quickly admit it, take responsibility, make an apology, ask for forgiveness. And there's a natural freedom that comes from that. Who the fuck would have thought, eh? So the story of my life. I started feeding 4 or 5 years ago. I started feeding the good, the positive, the truth, the true truth. And I feel a connection to myself, to the earth, to the universe, to God, if you're okay with that word. If you're not, universal energy, the power of nature, love energy. And I actually went through all the process of replacing the word God with other words at first, until I came to a place where, just allness, creation, life, love, the highest good, the higher self, they all can be called God to me today. It's good orderly direction. And really what happened, and it's not uncommon. It's not just addictions that can do this, but brought me to a bottom that I just didn't know where else to turn. And I landed in a beautiful place where it basically was just a 35-day place program where there's people put there. They look like angels to me. They have absolute compassion and feel compelled and drawn to dedicate their lives to helping people find spiritual principles again, find their values and the morals within themselves. And in doing that, I became to feel alive for the first time that I can ever remember. Before, maybe when I was a kid. And even then, that's still a blur these days to me. Sometimes I do inner self introspect or investigation or reflection, and try and look back to if there was ever a place where I was just that joy and that felt that serenity and felt the ability and the safeness to be truthful when I made a mistake. I really don't remember being able to admit a mistake. It was always suppress, repress, bury. Um, I thought that was how you got rid of things. Turns out the way you get rid of things is to reflect on them, accept them, forgive yourself. Uh, if it hurt anybody else, forgive, ask, acknowledge that it did. Um, maybe apologize if that's what needs to be done. And those things I'm still working on every day. The I can acknowledge I made the mistake, but how to use the proper words with the proper energy to make it right with the people I'm closest with. I'm still am working on being better at that. However, I have a connection today to the earth, to nature, to the elements of earth, which is just its soil, it's the trees, the plants, the mountains, the water, fire. I have a connection with breath, with the universe, with spiritual principles. Like, they are the key factor that brought and brings still today a peace and an inner joy that is self-fulfilling and self-propelling and is infinite. I practice them every morning through meditation to connect with them, to connect with the universe, the sun, the moon, the stars, the infinite space that's out there, to connect with my family through thought, prayer, if you want to say it. Again, in the beginning of this inward journey, the word prayer and God it just meant religion to me. And religion meant mind control, or I don't know, not even mind control. It's just, it didn't, for some reason, it had left a negative feeling, just didn't feel truth to me. Spirituality, spiritual principles, feels like 1,000,000% truth, without a doubt. And then as the days go by, I get to experience the gifts that spiritual principles, living in my truth, with morals and my values, honestly, putting myself out there to be vulnerable. What happens to ask for help, to offer help to others, to have something to offer, to admit that I need to learn more or be, I don't know everything and I never will. To be able to say, hey, I fucked up today. When it comes down to how free do I want to be, all the way free. That's how free. How do I become all the way free? I sit each morning, I meditate, I become connected. With what I am. Not what my name is, where I go to work, but just to notice to the best I can, without judgment, what's going on inside of on my body level, the body, like how do I feel, with emotions and feelings, what's happening at the level of the senses, the eyes, what do I hear, what do I smell, what's going on with my thoughts, which I put a lot Um, a lot less stalking today than I ever used to. Um, in my experience now, it seems that this knows a lot more than this. I'd rather move forward out of love from the heart and get let down or disappointed from another human being than I can handle that pain today. I can handle that disappointment. Um, then avoid it because my head tells me to that it'll hurt too much. Like I'd rather get hurt, living in truth, doing the next right thing, than avoid it. I lived in an unconscious place, avoiding uh, what I thought was negative feelings. They're not negative feelings. They're just human feelings. Period. Sometimes you're gonna feel sad. Sometimes you're gonna go through a little self fucking pity bullshit. Talk about it. The power of sharing. So that brings me to our meditation group, the Circle of Freedom. There is such huge benefit of being in a group setting. Um, Talking about our life experiences, sharing how meditation, how being connected or disconnected is working on it in our lives. When I've been around some groups, it's the last 5 years, and even looking back to anything like watching teams, for example, uh, the power of the energy, of the team spirit. You put them together, and then honest sharing, the power of sharing what we're experiencing, and then the value of practicing, learning by some spiritual principles such as honesty, being open to new ideas instead of our old ones, open-mindedness, being willing to try something that maybe you're not sure is going to have any benefit to you, but trying it anyway just because you got the invite. Um, just instead of sitting around doing the same old thing and getting into it in a group setting, there's just so much experience and so much that happens. So I hope that some people that maybe haven't been in a group setting like this will stick around until they get those benefits. And those that have been in other group settings and seeing the benefits that just happen kind of naturally on their own just by showing up, for an hour a week or so, not only are you helping yourself, you're helping others. And there's so much benefit into helping others. So in saying all that, which one are you going to feed today?